This is AV SuperFriends On Topic, a 30-minute monthly roundtable focused on a single topic. This discussion will be opinionated, to the point, and saturated with our well-known blend of painfully won expertise and deeply ingrained immaturity. For February 2021, it's the AV SuperFriends On Topic. Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another podcast adventure with the AV SuperFriends. My name's Chris Dector, and I'm joined by Mark, Rachel, and Jamie. And this month's episode is going to be us all kind of talking about why we do what we do. Why do we love AV? So I think the idea here is we're going to kind of give some of our perspectives on why we're in AV, why we're still in AV, why we're in AV after those first 2 weeks, or maybe that first month, and you get that first paycheck, and then you start looking around at other opportunities. But we're still here, and we're sticking to it. So, but before we get there, one quick note of self-promotion. In addition to this monthly show with higher ed media that you're listening to right now, we do a semi-monthly show, and that's every 2 weeks, because again, I've looked it up. We do a semi-monthly show called the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. It's wider ranging, it's longer in format. We kind of go all over the place. So if you want to hear more of these same knuckleheads, but not so limited to our choice of topic, head over to avsuperfriends.com. You can subscribe there, or you can find us wherever you get great podcasts, and some not so great podcasts too. So this month, we're going to talk about For the Love of AV, which initially I read more of kind of as a curse in the sense of, oh, for the love of AV. But I think we're going to try to stay positive and kind of think, talk about why we're doing this stuff. Why do we put up with this? So why is it that we do what we do? Why do we put up with the tight schedules and the rushed work and the delayed construction and the upset professors and the overly helpful students? And we still keep coming back every day. Maybe some of us never left higher ed after college, and so we're still here. And others of us have left and returned, sometimes multiple times. Some of us moved sideways from IT or TV, film, radio production kind of into AV. Some of us just showed up one day and we're still here. So I think we trade the lower pay compared to commercial AV for excellent benefits, for discounted or free tuition, for a more regular schedule, both during the week and throughout the year. We know when we're going to be busy, and we know when it's going to be slack, which makes it easier to plan those upcoming projects. But beyond beyond higher ed, AV in general is a community. Despite being a multi-billion-dollar industry, AV also seems small. We keep running into the same people over and over, year after year. We all like technology. We all like problem solving. And we all like creating solutions. We all like customer service and client interactions, for the most part. We like that we get to be part of an entire life cycle of an AV system, from earliest concept through design, installation, commissioning, daily use support, and eventual replacement. We love the opportunities to learn. We love the opportunities to build our skills, to broaden our horizons, and develop new tools, to try something new. We love that AV provides us a sandbox environment to experiment. We love that AV is a safe place to fail. We love new and exciting technologies. We love that AV sits at the intersection of consumer, IT, and video production. We love that AV is more than the sum of its parts. We love that all that and more come together to make AV. So returning to that original question, why do we do what we do? For the love of AV. So, Super Friends, I think now's the time when we're going to kind of go around the room, and we've each made a collection of little cards and covered them with glitter and glue and put stickers on them and little bits of candy, and we're going to drop those off on everyone's desk. And, hey, it's February, so we're legally required to talk about Valentine's Day. So why do we love AV?
Well, I'll jump in here, and my shoebox is empty. I have no little cards or stale candy whatsoever. But
I've taken the candy out.
Yeah, you robbed it all, stole it from me.
I heard you had allergies.
So, yeah, that could be true, too. I have a lot of allergies. This is an odd question. I've actually posed this question to several folks, but I'm kind of guilty of stumbling into the AV industry. At one point in time, I may or may not have been a musician that traveled around and played music and made my way into doing live sound, and then got wrangled into a college about fixing a studio kind of program up and doing some maintenance. So I kind of fell into it, and then realized, wow, none of these 2 days that I go to work are ever the same. felt a lot like being on the road. It was always a different thing every morning, every day, different problem to solve. And I felt that I enjoyed that. I actually found that I don't like going to a common office that's the same routine, getting the facts going and the, same thing day in and day out. That I like the fact that when I show up, I could have a bunch of irate people, I could have a bunch of happy people. It's a bunch of new problems to solve and a bunch of new folks to dive into, think about problems with. And there was an element of that anything can go wrong at any moment, right? When I got into a larger university with larger venues, and I was like, wow, this kind of seems like rock and roll sometimes, right? We have like a show going on, and like there's good professors and they're doing things, and at any moment it all could just fall down and blow up in our face. So there was a little bit of like mystique around that still, and it's like, well, it kind of feels like rock and roll-ish. So maybe I can do this as a career. And then, like many folks in AV, I was always mesmerized by the new widget and black box and all those things. But I think at the end of the day, like the culmination of the change day in and day out, and having like-minded folks that want to tackle interesting problems together, it grabbed me, and now I'm here. And I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but for me, that's kind of the piece I love the most.
Yeah, I think like you guys both said, I think that's pretty common, that most of us just kind of fell into this world. When I left high school, I knew I was going to be mass media, right? Back then it was still newspapers, right? TV, radio. Now, God, look at it. And then it wasn't until, I get to school and I find out I'm 3 years into, well, I spent 5.5 years, but I'm 3 years into my 15 years of college. And then I learned, oh, there's an engineer and, that recording and the microphones, and it really captured me, but I kind of put it on the back burner because I was so late. It wasn't until I discovered that TV and radio, especially at the beginning career beginnings, is not really sufficient to raise a family. You're moving all the time. You're not getting paid well, and your hours blow. They're terrible, right? And it's cutthroat. It's awful. I mean, at least with podcasting, right? If nobody wants to listen to you, who cares? Right? You just put it out there. People listen, great. If they don't, who cares, right? But when you're making your money based upon the number of listeners, in radio or TV, you only need a couple, and then all of a sudden tomorrow you don't have a gig. You're sitting at home looking for the next thing. And so I ended up at where I am now, and I think what I really enjoy about it now is I always try to challenge myself to learn something new, right? And in this field, this is one of the few fields where every day we come to work, every 6 months, our entire world changes. I mean, think about if you want to buy a television. Every 6 months, there's something new. You can't keep a product life cycle is 6 months, a year if you're lucky, right? And so you're always having to figure this crap out. And then it just broadens up. And I like to think of a lot of us as we're in our trade, we are jack of all trades, right? We do everything. There's a little bit of lighting, a little bit of audio, a little bit of everything. It doesn't matter if you're live sound, if you're broadcast, if you're just higher ed AV, if you're integrator. We all know little bits about all of this, but none of us are really great at any of it. And it's kind of exciting to know that I can do these little things all over the place. I can dabble enough in electricity that I'm okay at being a basic electrician. I can dabble a little bit in all these things. I mean, short of plumbing, we do a lot of things, and we can be comfortable with a lot of different ways. And I really kind of enjoy that. And I've looked at other jobs outside of higher ed, and I think a lot of the turnoffs, besides, like Chris said, the benefits and the up until recently stability of higher ed jobs, because let's face it, it was really hard to lose a higher ed job until recently. And now it's real easy, right? They just tell you not to come back in. But besides the stability and things, I've looked at other jobs and I've interviewed for other jobs, and they kind of want to shoehorn you. I am very used to being a technician. I'm very used to being the programmer. I'm very used to being the designer. I'm very used to being the commissioner. I'm very used to being, and the idea that, no, you're just the designer. You just draw schematics. You never really get to go do anything. Well, that sucks. I don't want to do that. Oh, you're just a technician, or you're just a IT support personnel where, hello, Windows won't open. I don't care. I don't care. Buy a Mac. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't even own a computer. There's people, right? I mean, you're like, why do they even give you an iPhone? On the flip side, I recently had the experience of, in the same night, trying to teach my wife's grandmother, so great grandma, how to use her first ever iPhone, because the telephone company finally told her flip phone was no longer adequate. So she had to upgrade. So she bought an iPhone. So while I was teaching her how to use her iPhone, I was also trying to help my in-laws set up their brand new Windows 10 laptop that they had never seen before. I wanted to quit. Help desk people are a special breed, and I realized that is not what I wanted to do. So so now there's a lot of aspects of my life that I enjoy, and I really like how AV brings that all together. And that's why I stuck around. There's headaches every day, different headaches, but ultimately it's a lot of fun sometimes.
I'm about to get super fired from the AV SuperFriends. See, it's confession time. I don't love AV. I don't even have a 4K display at my house. And all of that sounds really weird, considering I've spent more than 20 years working in the industry, and I've created a fairly successful career doing AV. What I am passionate about, and what still gives me enjoyment coming into work, is creating successful systems that support pedagogy in the classroom. When I went to college, most of my friends were all art majors, and so I got used to the term art for art's sake. What I see happen too often is AV for AV's sake. And I think that's something I'm constantly guarding against, is making sure that what we put in is there for the primary purpose of supporting teaching and learning. That doesn't mean I don't admire good sound or a good image and all of that. But there seems to be a disconnect, I think, between higher ed design engineers who are really focused on the learning space and learning technology, and a lot of your consultants and commercial integrators who design really good technical systems, but don't have the understanding of the learning space and the learning environment in order to make that jump from a technically correct system to a successful classroom system. It sounds a little soapboxy, so I'm going to back off all that. But when I saw this topic about For the Love of AV, it just made me cringe a little bit, because I don't. But what I love is successful implementation of learning technology in the classroom. That still gets me excited.
I am going to get real earnest here, which is not my default mode. But yeah, I mean, everybody's how I got this AV job story is different, but it's all the same. It's all a different story. It's all the same story, because everybody fell into AV in some kind of weird sideways lateral way. But everybody in AV has this kind of shared, let's put on a show energy. Before this podcast started its official recording today, we accidentally developed our backdoor pilot for the AV SuperFriends spinoff podcast about bluegrass music, because everybody that's in AV loves music. Everybody that's in AV came from a theater background or some sort of like performance and or like appreciation or arts background. Almost everybody that I talk to in that industry has that in their DNA, but there's no pretense in AV. There's no stuffiness or like pedantry. Everybody just wants to like everybody appreciates the beauty of what they're doing and wants to tinker with it and figure out how to make it work a little better, or figure out a new way to do it. And that creates this really incredible collaborative community that lacks the sort of there's nobody in this industry who wastes their day trying to tear other people down. This industry lifts one another up like no other field I've ever worked with or known. And there was a time earlier in this year where I thought that I might be leaving the industry, and I was shocked to discover how sad that made me, because the people in this industry are so smart and self-effacing and funny and fun and warm. There is no better line of work to be in.
Well, I think that's all well said.
We're all shedding a few tears. Right?
You know, and I want to thank all of you for that little bit of background and kind of some perspective. One thing I didn't explain or share in the intro is I didn't give my background as how I got in AV, and I'm one of those people who moved sideways from IT. I was doing PC deployment and server configuration and sysadmin work, and the department on campus who was doing classrooms needed someone to do all that for them. And then I started in that and shifted over and just kind of went from there. So it's as Jamie was saying, it's multifaceted. There's a lot of different, specializations within the field. And I think that's part of the reason that a lot of us do this, because you get to work on a lot of different aspects of things that ordinarily you'd be doing one of those. So I think it's fun, it's challenging, and there's always something new to learn.
I think it's really also kind of, to what Rachel says, a lot of us come from a performance or something like performance-ish. And it fascinates me about the kind of shit that we come up with and the manufacturers. I mean, we use lasers to create displays.
You might. I use freaking laser beams. Yeah.
And somebody... Some person sat there, and then you see the, when projector mapping first came on, you're like, that's freaking amazing, and now it's everywhere. And I'm trying to convince the local high school to allow me to let them do it for football games, because they now have the LED lights on their stadium, so they can shut them off and get them back on in a hurry. It's not that 58-minute warm-up period. And I really want them to allow me to work with the students and put on a projector mapping show in conjunction with the marching band, right?
Oh yeah,
and do something fun.
I can use this. I can use this to make AV spirit of this industry is a blast. I remember a few years ago when Breakfast came out with their flip tile displays, right? Digital signage based on the same technology that makes up the schedule board at Penn Station. And how cool and innovative that was. I remember when the Xbox Kinect came out and a bunch of AV experience designers took one look at that and said, oh, I have an idea. And you started seeing that little, $90 consumer camera component built into activations at like Disney World and for location-based entertainment all over the place, because this industry is always looking at the world around it and thinking about how this stuff works, why it works, and how else it could be used.
Now, I got to ask you guys too. So for the love of AV, let's go to the flip side. When has it gotten me in trouble for the love of AV?
Oh, there's lots of that. Lots of that.
When I go places with my family, I scan everything, right? I'm looking and I'm seeing. and routinely, especially if it's a museum or something, oh my God, I start getting the back of the head slaps, and the "would you quit it?" from
Can't you just enjoy
my kids
being
are
here?
even
Just be here in the
my,
moment, Jamie.
Yes, my kids even are involved now. They're like, stop. Because you go by an interactive display and they say, like, touch the button or something. And you're like, okay, I touched the button. What's running this? I could do this. What did they... And then my family, they're just like, just berating me. That, would you... Just look at the display. They didn't bring you here to look what's behind the curtain. Oh, the hell they didn't. Why'd they put it up there?
Shouldn't have put a curtain there.
I got asked by 2 different docents at a museum in Oklahoma a couple of years ago to stop messing with their displays, because they had one that was a big interactive one. I was curious about the same thing, and the other, which was a very clever solution, what they did, and I took a long video of it because it's still one of the things I'm going to use at some point. They took an oversized monitor. They had a small alcove in the space, but they took an oversized monitor and took the front off and mounted it in there so the light was contained effectively to the shallow alcove. But what it did was they were able to put artifacts and things in this alcove and light them with just the edge lighting, the edge LED lighting on the display itself. But the display still worked, and it was dark enough with the alcove that they could have images on the display, but it was transparent, and then you could see the artifacts behind it. And that, I was like half an hour messing with that thing. And like I said, 2 docents were like, stop, get away. Don't mess with that.
I got a gig with one of the local museums to kind of help them out with some things. And what I learned since then was that a lot of times the docents and things at the museums freak out because it's all an integrator that brings it in, and it costs them lots and lots and lots of money if I jack it up. Right?
Yeah.
So they don't really know how it works, but I'm all geeking out about it. And then you go to some of these museums, and it is next to impossible to convince them to do something like that, right? To do something different. We had this one, they wanted to do a Wizard of Oz thing, and I was like, well, we're going to make a magic mirror. No, we just, no, seriously, this is cheap and easy. You'll be amazed on how simple this is. No. Like, why not? And please?
Yeah, but I think you're hit on it, right? There's an element of magic that everybody is a part of, and we're a part of the show. And a lot of musicians and stuff you speak about, they always ask, like, they're chasing that it. What is it that it actually grabs you, right? And so once you get a piece of that and you taste that, and there's almost a little bit of this manifest destiny, Wild West frontier where we're all out here inventing magic in real time. And giving it to the world and being a part of that is super fulfilling for a lot of folks. And I think in the industry, you get people that want to continue to be a part of that magic, whether it be the Wizard of Oz or, a museum or a professor in front of a classroom that, if you find a student who gets it for a moment and they saw on a screen image or whatever, and all of a sudden that's a really powerful moment for somebody. And there's magic in that moment.
What a great year to be part of AV too, because I feel like when everybody realized exactly how dependent they were on this industry to do basically anything this year that involved talking with a person that they didn't live with, and everybody sort of discovered the grades of quality inherent in those experiences and how much it took to create something that was actually good and fun and engaging and worked, then I feel like the whole industry got to like take on these huge Maui vibes and just be like, you're welcome. This is what we've been doing for you. You're welcome.
I'd sing the song for you, but I think we've already established that my musical taste is 0. Not taste, ability.
My musical abilities, just for the record, are spectacular, but I have a strong personal prohibition against starting a sing-along on Zoom. Terrible idea, always.
You just suck the joy out of this whole call.
That's what I do. First I bring the joy, and then I take it away.
That's why we wanted you around. It's been great.
Well, I think this has been a good kind of low key conversation for us to have about why we do what we do. Why do we put up with AV? Why do we love AV? As Jamie just mentioned, there's there's a positive and a negative to it, and sometimes it works out well, and sometimes we find ourselves nerding out a little too much and ending up causing problems. But we're still here. We're still doing this. We'll still be here tomorrow. We'll still be here next month. I don't see it changing anytime soon, and it's a fascinating industry and a fascinating place to work, and I think we'll continue with that for the next several years at least. So, on that note, let's take a quick break.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So, here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
All right, so for our final segment for this month's show, we're still going to talk about loving AV, but we're going to kind of flip it around and look towards the future and say, what's the one thing we would love to see happen in AV? And at least for me anyway, I would love to see what we would consider our most advanced AV systems become commonplace. By which I mean, think about, say, like video projectors in 1997. We're like, wow, these are really cool, and only the 3 richest kings of Europe can have them. Well, now they're everywhere, and you can get them at Best Buy for $400, and they're not terrible for that price. But it's just assumed that your most basic presentation system has things that 20 years ago were, only available in the fanciest spots. So I'd like to see the industry move forward to the point where what we consider the super high-end systems now are just, hey, that's the basic system, and you get that. Because I don't know what that next level is going to be in the super high-end systems 20 years from now, and that's what I really want to see is that stuff. If I knew what it was, I'd invest now and retire, but I don't. So check back in 20 years.
Codecs. I hear they're the thing.
It's all codecs. So go, Jamie.
No. You're going to make me do it?
Going
back to your example, your little analogy there with the richest kings in Europe kind of leads to mine. All the little fiefdoms. I want them gone. I'm so tired of it. The little silos of information, like I'm going to withhold this because it puts me in a better position than you. It's like, give me a break. We're all hired in the same university to put a product on to the public, right? We're all in on this, all of us. I would really like it, and some places are better than others. But even within AV departments, there's these little fiefdoms of I don't want you to learn how to program because then you might intrude upon mine, or I don't want you on my network because you might intrude upon my, and it's just these little, and we have these kingdoms and all these walls, and it's just at some point it's asinine. Money is involved too, right? It's my money, it's your money, it's their money. It's like, wait, stop. Our whole mission here is to provide an environment for teaching and learning. And we're quibbling over stupid garbage. Like, and literally, sometimes it's even like a 25-cent cable. It's like, what are we doing? This is dumb. I would just really like to see some of those barriers, some of those fiefdoms, some of that what's mine is mine and yours is yours, just kind of start to erode away. There's always responsibilities and roles, but good Lord, we don't have to take up arms every time somebody looks like they might be interested in what I'm doing. That's what I'd like to see.
I would love to see our LMS work a little bit closer with our other learning technologies. And I just think there's a gap there. Like, we're already putting all of our content into our LMS that we're going to present each day. Why haven't our control system manufacturers or our wireless display technology groups worked with our Canvas and our Moodle and everybody else to try to figure out how they can show that? That way, whether the student's in person, whether they're at home, or whether it's active learning small group style, the instructor pre-builds the class in her LMS, and it's a little bit easier to maneuver the course once you're in the room.
So I'm going to go, it's pretty internal to probably my university. I'm sure there's other folks out there that have a similar kind of dream and or desire, but I'd love to see within our university, some of our clients, our faculty, to really embrace like all the disruption and start pushing their content to the realm and like capability of our systems. Our systems sit idle for a lot of time. And I really think that right now we're finally going to get to a point where the classroom experience is actually going to utilize the tool sets we have before they've actually gotten to end of life. So I'm really excited to be asked more challenging experiential AV questions and helping folks change that content and the way that they're actually delivering in a space. I would love to see that. I would like to see some very unique kind of challenges thrown our way as an industry. And I think we will see that. And I'm actually looking forward to untangling some of these new questions and hopefully making use of that idle power that has been sitting in the classrooms for so long.
I would like to see the maturation of infrastructure as a public utility, both with respect to network infrastructure broadly, so that people who are living in rural areas have the same kind of access at a distance to the virtual learning that's being produced right now, to the many amazing AV experiences that just you cannot get at if you don't have a decent internet connection. And also in the way that we approach building design. I think that, public buildings and higher education facilities are ahead on this, but for a lot of private buildings, they still don't treat the network as a utility the way that they treat water or power. They just assume that Wi-Fi is going to be good enough to provide an experience throughout the building. And that's not so, especially as we become more reliant on networked audio and video for our work and for our learning, and as those experiences become more sophisticated. So understanding that these things are foundational to people's ability to participate in society and acting that way.
Well, there you have it. Some different perspectives on what we'd love to see AV do in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Though in Rachel, in your example, I hope it doesn't take us that long. I fear it probably will, but I'd like to see that. That's a great one. I'd like to see that one happen much faster. So, well, folks, I think we've done enough damage for 1 month. We all love AV. We if you're listening to this, you love AV, or you clicked on the wrong podcast. So please stick around. But I think we'll be back next month because we love doing this. We love talking about this, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. So thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with yet another episode of AV SuperFriends On Topic. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.